Morning, everybody.
Morning, morning.
Tommy.
What's up, you guys? Let's get it today.
Let's go.
Good morning.
Kristen.
Hey, babe.
Oh, Tommy, I don't think we can hear anything.
Yes. Is that better? Can I hear now?
Perfect.
Okay. All right, great. Sorry about that. All right, so we're back mic'd up. All right, so back to start. Anytime I think about sales, I think about sales is a transfer of belief, right? So if you believe that they need what you have, right? You believe they can't afford it. You believe that it's a no-brainer. They can make a decision today, right? Hold on, we got somebody coming in here. Come on in. Yes, sir. We got seat safe for you back here. So you need to transfer that belief into them. And then guess what they're going to believe? They're going to believe that they need it, that they can afford it, and it's a no-brainer. They can make a decision today. So you got to be sold first. You got to be sold yourself. Number one. So I always start there. And the best way to be sold is to buy it, right? And I don't want you to buy nothing. We're not buying nothing. We're salespeople, right? Every time I go out in the field, I got to tell myself, you ain't buying shit today, bro. Don't even start buying their baloney, right? Listen, if you're going to buy something, don't buy baloney. Don't be buying their baloney because you know whatever they're telling you out there, it's a bunch of what? That's a bunch of baloney. Who buys baloney? That's back in the day. So when I go out there, I got to tell myself, I'm going to be selling. But before I can sell, I got to what? I got to buy, right? To the amount that I'm bought in is to the amount that I'm going to be able to sell out. And nobody wants you to be a sellout, but I want you to sell out, right? You don't want to be a sellout, but I want you to sell out. Sell out. Sell out of everything. This is Christmas. We got to sell the whole shelf. We got to sell out everything. Cool thing about it, though, is we got unlimited stock. So good luck. Good luck trying to sell out of your supply. There's some people that right now, I'll be honest with you. I'm trying to send gifts to people for Christmas, right? Because it's just too hard. I'm not going to be able to see them all, right? So I just want them to get a nice gift. So I found this thing. It's like Harry and David's. They do fruits and pears and all kind of stuff, right? And then there's this Wolferman's Bakery. It's a whole nother one, and they do these real nice muffins, right? So there's this perfect Christmas gift. It's like the winter gift basket, you know? And I'm like, this is perfect. It had all my favorite stuff in it. Blueberry muffins, blueberry stuff. So I'm going to get everybody this. It's going to be great, right? I go click on it. Guess what? Out of stock. They just lost probably 20 baskets right there, bro. Right? We never going to have that problem. Think about that, right? That's just on the little side note, right? But to the amount that you're bought in is to the amount you're going to sell out. If you're not bought into your team, if you're not bought into your dream of winning the championship, if you're not bought in to what this team's about and winning this game, when you go into that basketball game, you're not going to sell out. You ain't going to be diving on the floor, getting kneed in the head, trying to get the ball, getting up with a bloody nose and still going. And then most people would bow out, but you're so bought in, you're selling out. You don't even know your nose was bloody. They're like, hey, bro. You're like, what? Like, you got blood all over you. Like, oh, man, I didn't even know that. I'm so focused on this, right? That's when you get told no out in the field. You just keep on rolling. That's what you're talking about. That rolls right off you. I'm going over here. We got a big, right? I'm selling out. And when you're in the home and you got to deal with a client, it's them versus you belief level, right? You have to first of all believe. First of all, believe. And like I said, you have to believe in your team. Like if you played for Penn State, you better believe in everything about Penn State, everything about them. You better love the blue and the white. You better know the alma mater inside and out. You know? Because when you go on that football field, the team, the people that sell out, those teams at the end, when it comes down to push comes to shove, that's that little bit of inch, that little bit of margin that made all the difference in the game. Last night, game comes down to the wire, right? Where'd that happen? How did they get that extra yard to get the first down? Where'd that happen? When he got tackled on the goal line, did you see that? He was an inch in or an inch out. Where did that team get that extra? Because if they would have started that play 1 yard back, guess where he would have been tackled? 1 yard shorter. Does that make sense? Right? So where did they get that yard? Was it in the second quarter, third quarter, half? But when did they gain that momentum? And it's so small of a margin that one team, they just sold out a little bit more. They outworked them a little bit more, you know, and that's just that belief. I think it just goes back to the level that you're sold. You're sold yourself, you know. So then you got to check, like, do you own the product yourself? Like if you're putting more money into other things, you know what they say is if you want to know what's important to somebody, check their schedule and check their checkbook. Wherever they put their time, wherever they put their money, that's going to tell you where they put their priorities, right? And if you're really, truly serious about being successful in your career, I don't know how to do anything else but to sell out. I don't know how to do it any other way. You're looking at a guy that when I was 21 years old, I graduated college. I got my Series 7, Series 66. And the first thing I did as a financial advisor, before I set up a savings account, before I set up a stock, a Roth IRA, bought any mutual fund, first thing I bought was $250,000 life insurance policy for myself. $168 a month. Variable universal life policy from RiverSource Financial. Who at 21 puts $168 a month into a life insurance policy? None of my friends was even thinking close to that. But if I'm going to sit in front of people and tell them they really need this, but I'm lying through my teeth because I don't even own the product myself, I just didn't feel confident in myself to be able to do that. You know what I mean? So that gave me the confidence in owning it myself, that when I sat down with a 40-year-old with a wife and kids, I'm 21 single, I got $250,000 on myself from my mom and dad. You are 40 years old with a wife, kids, and you're the only income for the family, and you got a mortgage, and you got no life insurance. Who you think's going to win that battle? Remember I said it's a battle. Who you think's going to win that battle? You mean, come on. Done. You understand me? Do you want me to give you a script? You don't need a script. That's the point. You don't need a script. I didn't need a script. Think about it. I'm 21 years old. I got $250,000. You're 40 with a wife and everything to lose, and you don't got nothing. Come at it. Let's go. Toe to toe. I don't even need nothing at that point. My belief's already there. I went into every single home with that that chip on my shoulder. Right? And I'm spending $168 and I'm asking him to set it at $68. So it starts there. You got to be sold. Sales is that transfer of belief. So now, do you think I can think they can afford? I'm spending $168 and I'm showing them $110. I believe that he can afford it. I know he can afford it. I know it. I know that I met with and here's the cool thing. I've met with some of the brokest people and I met with some of the most wealthy people, right? And even the most brokest people find ways to get their beer and their cigarettes and they'll gamble and they find ways to make it happen. There's a crackhead that'll somehow find ways to smoke some cigarettes today. Every day, $3-4 a day. Cigarette, how much is that? $120 a month, right? So I just know that they can set aside $10 a week. And here's the situation is I'm sold on this too, because I'm so sold on this fact that if I sit down with a couple, a married couple, there's two husband and wife, very capable people, right? If them two are telling me they can't come up with $10 a week, I'm thinking to myself, if something happens to him tomorrow, how's she going to come up with $10,000 for a funeral by herself? So if you two are having a tough time coming up with $10 a week now, I can't imagine trying to come up with $10,000 by yourself at one of the worst times of your life. So I'll tell them, I understand how sometimes $10 a week can feel like it might be unaffordable, right? But if you think about it, we can't afford not to have this program in place. It's a lot easier for us together to come up with $10 a week than it's going to be for Mary to come up with $10,000 by herself at one of the worst times of her life. So what we'll do today, Joe and Mary, what we're going to do today, those are closing words. You telling people, here's what we're going to do today. We'll make sure that you get your foot in the door with these benefits, but we'll make sure we keep it comfortable at the same time. That's always a great line. And you know what's nice is you're allowed to repeat that as many times as you want. You can repeat things multiple times. And then the wife repeats it back to you, that's the best. She's like, honey, let's just get our foot in the door today. Like when they start saying your words back to you, you know you got them. So I am sold myself. That's why you're going to have natural enthusiasm, right? Natural enthusiasm. When you're sold yourself. Everybody knows the enthusiasm analogy, right? What is it? What is it? Come on. I am sold myself. What does that mean? Enthusiasm? Okay, all right, all right.
Enthusiasm. Right. The enthusiasm.
You got it. Faith knows. Faith knows. So the last four letters of enthusiasm are what? IASM. I am sold myself. And that's where you get the enthusiasm for it is to the level that you're sold. Okay. All right. So now diving into the presentation. I'll continue to, always just remind us that people are going to make decisions probably within the first 20, 30 seconds of talking to you. They are going to start making judgments one way or another of whether they should trust you or not, whether they should have confidence in you or not, right? So we have to keep and be mindful of that. You only have one chance to make a good first impression. That's it. You only got one chance to do that, right? So think about the first time you talk to them on the phones, I think most of you guys have that pretty much covered. I think all of you guys have a pretty good phone voice, a pretty good introduction to who you are, why you're calling them, you know, and the phone call tees up the appointment, right? But we can't call them up all energetic on the phone and then show up all slow in the home. We're like, who's this guy? This ain't the person I talked to the other night. So we got to make sure whatever, if we were talking with a cowboy voice, for some crazy reason, you decided to call him, you're watching a Western and you decided to talk like Clint Eastwood. And then you show up in the home and you're talking back in like Jay Vaughn again. They're going to be like, who is this? You're going to have to continue the masquerade. Okay. All right. So you know, all of us call them up with a lot of enthusiasm. You got to remember that, right? And the energy that we transfer through the phone is why they decide to make that appointment with us. You know, we transferred energy in them to make that decision for them to set that appointment with us. So we got to continue the energy into the home. And now if we're on Zoom, it's going to be different than if you're in the home. But I know a couple things that I would do when I was in the home is I wouldn't be talking like I was talking to my boys. I wouldn't be talking like I'm talking to my mom on the phone. I'm going in there and I'm Tommy the salesman, right? So I got to put on my game face. I got to get ready to go. So I got to make sure my voice is ready. I got to make sure that I'm dressed the way I need to be dressed. You know, I would get my energy going because I know that most of the people, when you get into the homes, they're usually just chilling. They're in their house. They're already comfortable, right? People aren't going to make decisions if they're comfortable, you know, and if they're moving slow and it's quiet and they're just all, how are you? Okay, yeah, you can sit over here. You want to, yeah, okay, sure. Like that can be some of your clients. You guys realize that, right? Now, we can't overdo it to where they're like, what is this? The circus just come to town? You can't overdo it. You know what I mean? And just come in there and be like a rampage, but you got to bring some energy in there. And here's the key is if you come in with some energy and they're low, right? A lot of times they'll suck you down. They'll suck you down, right? So you have to maintain a high level of energy throughout your presentation and be aware that that's going on, you know? So I've been in homes where I realized like I started like slouching and like slurring my words almost and drooling and almost falling asleep with the people as I was talking to them. I realized I started really slowing my presentation down and I started like coming down to their level almost, you know, and that wasn't good because I lost my energy. So anyways, first impression, when I come into the house, I come in high. So I usually talk a little bit louder when I come into the home. If I'm usually talking at a 5, when I go into the home, I'd be a 7 or an 8. To where they'll think you're a loud talker, right? And what that allows you to do is it gives you range in your presentation. So, you know, so right here, this is maybe a 6 or a 7. Like I probably would turn up even a little bit more. And remember, you want to talk from your diaphragm more. So when you talk from your diaphragm, you project your voice more like a singer, right? So if you keep that in mind over time, you'll learn that, you know, when it's time to turn it on, I'm going to have to start talking not from here and not from here, but from talking from here, right? And what you're going to end up doing really by the end of this thing is you're going to be talking from your heart to the people. And you're going to be able to make it more impactful because you came in here and it gives you more range. So, you know, I probably would even practice. I'd be like, Joe, hey, Joe, Joe, how are you? Tom Vena with American. Joe, there it is. I like that one. I'm coming in with that today. Joe and Mary Smith. Joe and Mary Smith. I'm coming to protect your family. All right, here we go. I'll pull my car over to the side of the road. I'll do some stretches. I get going. I'm telling you. Like if my trainees would think I was crazy. I'd be like, guys, we got to pull over. Let's do. If it was nice, we'd do a couple jogging in place. We'd run up and down the block a couple times. I'd stretch out. You know, I'd get my voice going. And then we get back in the car and I pull up to the person's house. And when I pull up to that person's house, I grab my stuff and run right up to that door. There was go time. I wasn't like, I'm not like, all right, now let's put on our pop-up song. Now let's say a prayer. Okay, now let me do this. All right, let's just wait an extra 5 minutes. No, I pull my car up to the house, boom, park it, get up to that door, let's go. Lights, camera, action. You ever hear that? At nighttime, they'd flick their switch on, or they'd leave their light on for you, and I would tell them at nighttime, leave the light on if you have a porch light or something. And I'd be like, boom, they left the light on for me. Lights, camera, action, let's go. Right? And I'm ready to go. And I got my voice. And then when you come up to the door, they know, they know that somebody's at their house. They're like, is this guy a loud talker or what? And Matt Brown shouldn't have a problem with that, right? So when you do that though, during your presentation, then you can talk to them a little bit more basic, 5, go to a 5, then go back up to an 8. And then when you want to get serious with them, then you can slow down, and then you could talk lower, and you could even get choked up a little bit and say, everybody that went to bed last night, Joe, Mary, that not everybody woke up this morning, and not everybody that went to work today is guaranteed to come home. So for you and Joe, that's why they set up this, but you just go into the next, whatever you want to go into, right? But you can slow everything down, you can talk a little bit lower, and it gives you that range in your presentation. So now, couple keys to closing. Couple keys to closing is proactively closing. We all know this. We all know we got to proactively close and hit on that stuff. But when we proactively close, let's make sure we get tie downs along with that. And if you can get them to tell you, it's even better, right? So I always like to make sure that the client tells me when I go over why we're there. I always say, Joe, Mary, the reason that we're meeting with you today, and it could be any reason why, okay? So I just don't want you to think it's just unions, and if you don't meet with a union, you're stuck. So if it's a union, it's easy. The reason we're meeting with you today, your president, John Smith, and if it's a contractors union or the construction workers union or the SEIU, I don't know all the names of the presidents out here yet, right? But let's just say your president, John Smith, president of your carpenters union, has contracted with our company, as well as 30,000 other unions and organizations as well, to make sure that you and all of the members have guaranteed permanent benefits. One of the biggest problems and one of the major concerns that they're running into right now is that everybody that works with companies typically get benefits, and that was typically a problem. Joe, how when you work for a company that the companies typically give the employees benefits, right? Well, that was actually a pretty big problem. And one of the biggest concerns that they had, because what happens whenever we leave that group to all the benefits? Let's say you quit, get fired, or retire. What do you think typically happens to all the members' benefits at some point? That's right, they lose them, they go away. So that was one of the biggest problems and concerns that they were running into. So what they did, they contracted through us to make sure that all the members had access to guaranteed permanent benefits, permanent life benefits. So today, I'll make sure that I go through all of your benefits and answer all of your questions during your service period today. So you could even tie in and throw in service period, right? I'll make sure I answer all your questions during your service period today. And if it makes sense, we'll make sure that you get set up with your, permanent life insurance benefits or permanent life benefits.
Do you think it's better to say service period rather than enrollment period?
Enrollment period, that's even better, yes. During your enrollment period today, yep. And if it makes sense, we'll make sure, and by the end of this, whatever, I'll help you get enrolled into your life benefits as well. You drop a line like that. So the point is, though, is you ask them, though, what typically happens if you quit, get fired, or retire, Joe? You know, let's say you just left, you know, you're with a company, you have benefits, but then you leave that company. What typically happens to all those benefits? What do you think, Joe? What's that be?
They go away.
They go away, right? See, so sometimes clients, you'll ask them to give you an answer, and they'll just go, yeah, or they'll be like, mm-hmm. Like, excuse me, what was that? Was that a yes or no? Like, yeah, you know, right? Like he went like this. I was like, what happens to the benefits? Like, I'm like, yeah, right? What's that mean though, right? He's like, well, they go away. I'm like, exactly. See, I like when the client tells me the words. If you can get the client to tell you, that's the best. Instead of you telling them, they tell you, right? I didn't say the benefits go away. You told me that when you quit, get fired, retire, they go away, right? So at the end, if they ever give you any rebuttals about they don't need it because they have work coverage, you know, pretty straightforward, right? Just go right back to, and here's why you beat the rebuttal up front. It's simple. It's a 3-step process, right? Beat the rebuttal up front. Then they should never give it to you. End of story. In a perfect world. But I've clearly went over this with clients about how they, you know, how they can afford it. We went over it. And then at the end, they tell me they can't afford it. I'm like, this is going to happen, right? We know that. It's not like you're a bad salesperson, you messed up. Happens to everybody. Sometimes the client just ain't listening. They want to hear whatever they want to hear, you know? So sometimes you might have to, if you keep getting the same rebuttal, you're going to have to readjust your presentation and make sure that you're handling those proactive situations better, you know, and then the reactive situations as well. So proactively handle it, reactively. Here's not in a perfect world. You go over this with them, and then at the end they say, oh, I don't need this because I already have 100,000 through work, through my group work covers. They gave us all 100,000. Pay $3 a week. So the first step is we handle it proactively, right? Now we get the rebuttal. What do we do when you get a rebuttal? Agree. Agree. Always agree. Grant Cardone, #1 rule of sales, always agree. Don't say no immediately. So whatever it is, oh, I agree with you. That makes sense. For sure, you definitely have that coverage through work. Like, I'm not going to disagree, like you don't have the coverage through work, you know? So I agree. You literally, the best way to agree with them is to say, okay, Joe, I agree with you. Makes sense. And I don't care what they tell me. It's usually one of my like go-to responses. Oh, I agree with you. That makes sense. You know, that coverage through work. But if you could remember, you know, that's actually because your president is the one who contract. That's the reason why that we're even out here in the first place. If you could remember how we went over, you know, the reason we're here is because those benefits that eventually, like you said, what happens to them. So the point is you proactively handle it. Then when they give you the rebuttal, you agree with them. And then you just simply go back to in the presentation where you already beat that rebuttal. Say, however, if you could remember back when we went over at the beginning, like why we're here, that group coverage is actually the reason why we're even here today. That was the problem and concern, right? And here's why. And then what you do is you just literally go over it with them again. Repeat yourself. You're allowed to repeat yourself. Sometimes you might need to say the same thing 4, 5, 6 times before they actually get it. It's okay. Sometimes in sales, you feel like, oh, I already told that to them. You know, in leadership, sometimes you're like, oh, but I already went over that with them. Got to go over a bunch of times, you know? So The second part of the presentation is going to be the I want to think about it rebuttal. I don't want that. So the paragraph after the mandatory read-off letter is the key portion of that. But right before that's the mandatory read-off letter. And you got to make sure that you go over that with them first. Or if you don't really go over that with them, the paragraph after doesn't make as much sense if they don't even know what this thing did, you know? So don't go into, going through the motions phase, and just read this thing off. You're reading it off with them. This is the first time they've ever seen this. Don't forget this presentation. This is the first time they've ever seen you, the first time they've ever seen this stuff. So when I go over the mandatory read-off letter, I turn the computer towards the client and I lean over and I take my pen and I read this thing with them loud and proud. And I enunciate every word like a professional, right? That's what you want to do there. Then you do the paragraph after the mandatory read-off letter. And some key parts of that is, you let them know the best thing is, Joe, is it's pretty much a no-brainer. The best part about it is pretty much a no-brainer. You're going to know one way or not whether it fits a need for you and your family. What they didn't want us to do, though, is go through all the benefits with you and, you guys say something silly like you wanted to think about it because they just wanted us to make a decision today, yes or no. And like we said, just in fairness to all the other members that are waiting to enroll into the benefits. So Joe and Mary, as I go through the benefits, then I'll say, so Joe and Mary, the next thing is we have to fill out they're going to have us fill out a union officer report form, and that's your transition from that. So when I close down the paragraph after the mandatory read-off letter, I know that the union officer report form is next. And then right after that is what? Typically I would go over, they always make me ask. And I get them both knocked out right there before I go into the benefits, before I go into anything. So I'll go over the paragraph after mandatory read-off letter. Right after the paragraph after the mandatory read-off letter, I'll say, so Joe and Mary, after we're finished here today, there's a union officer report form. It's basically like my report card. It's going to go back to a union president. It's going to give him feedback, her feedback, give them feedback on how we did for you and all the members. Okay, so I'll have that here for you. And then I say, so now Joe and Mary, that they always make me ask when we meet with our members, and then you guess what they always make me ask, guys? What's that? You got it, right? They ask either the $5 question or the hour power, whatever it is. So let's use the $5 question. Joe and Mary, they always make me ask, if you were to set aside $5 for every $100 that you took home, and you set that aside to protect your family, would that take food off your table or drastically change your lifestyle? Yeah, probably not. Most families say that it wouldn't, Joe, and they just never wanted us to show somebody something that they could afford, something that they wanted, but they just couldn't afford. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So the first benefit that they set up for you, Joe and Mary, is your freedom of choice. Or actually, no, the first, what's it say? The first thing that it says here, Joe and Mary, and if you click next, what's it say on the screen? Let's examine your need for final expense protection. So literally, I'm in there just going along with the presentation. I turn the computer to them and I say, so Joe and Mary, it says here, think how easy this is. This is what I say. So Joe and Mary, it says here, let's examine your need for final expense protection. And I press play. And then the video plays, right? After the video plays, then the benefits come up on the screen, right? So it's going to show them. So Joe and Mary, for you, it's recommending, Joe, the expert simulator is recommending $30,000 in whole life coverage to guarantee that your funeral and final expenses will never be a burden to your family ever again. And I think the key words are using like heavy, strong words like never never ever. That's like, so I tell them, the expert simulator is recommending to have $30,000 in whole life protection in place for you, Joe, to guarantee that your funeral and final expenses will never be a burden to your family ever again. Right now, guess what it's going to be? A burden to your family. This is going to make sure that never happens again. You're never going to have that burden again. Right? Now, the expert simulator has identified right now that you actually have $0 in coverage for that. So what it's showing right now is it's showing a need of 30,000, and it actually recommends to cover that need of 30,000. Does that make sense for you, Joe? Does that make sense for you, Mary? Now, for you, Mary, the expert simulator is recommending $30,000 in whole life protection for you to guarantee to take care of all of your funeral and final arrangements, so that your funeral and final arrangements are never a burden to the family ever again. And I literally repeat myself, but you know what? Joe got the satisfaction of hearing me say that for him. Give Mary the satisfaction next. Let her know how good that feels to know that her funeral and final arrangements are never going to be a burden to her family ever again. Right? And right now, the expert simulator has identified that, Mary, you actually already have $10,000 of whole life coverage that you said that your mom had set up for you when you were younger. And that's still in place right now, right? And that'll always be in place because it's whole life. Will be there for your whole life. So you already have 10,000. So what it's showing for you, Mary, is it's actually showing a need of 20,000, and it's recommending to cover that need of 20,000 as well. And that'll make sure your funeral and final arrangements are secured. Does that make sense, Joe? Does that make sense, Mary? Excuse me? Okay, great, perfect. Just want to make sure we're on the same page with that. Now, keep in mind, Joe and Mary, just like in the video, this $30,000 that they're going to set up, that's set up for you, that's actually set up for you on a freedom of choice certificate. Okay, Joe? So the way this is going to work is this is going to take care of all of your funeral and final arrangements so your family doesn't have to worry about it. Just like in the video that you saw, and I go over literally I'll pitch them on the freedom of choice certificate. This is what's selling everything, the freedom of choice, right? So you have to make sure you pitch that. So I'll show you. So here's how I pitch it. So Joe, they set up this freedom of choice certificate for you. This is going to guarantee to take care of all of your funeral and final arrangements so that your family doesn't have to. Now, Joe, this is a permanent benefit that'll be in place forever. So you'll never have to worry about losing this. You can quit, you can get fired, you can retire, you can leave your union. You guys can move to the other side of the country. Joe, you could be 99 years old. It don't matter wherever, however, whenever you pass away, this will be guaranteed to be in place forever. Okay. Now, obviously, Mary, I could imagine if something happened to Joe, I could imagine you would be the one to take care of the funeral and final arrangements. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So Mary, you're going to have this certificate and you could take this down to any funeral home in America. That's why they call it the freedom of choice certificate. It gives you the freedom of choice to use it at any funeral home that you would like. And you take this down to the funeral home, hand it over to the funeral director, and everything's going to be taken care of right there on the spot. Now, keep in mind, Mary, on the back of this, they leave it blank, okay? But you know that you're going to have $30,000 on this certificate, all right? So what they don't recommend to do is they don't recommend for you to walk into the funeral home and say, hey, I got $30,000. What can I get? Because you could imagine, Joe, Mary, I mean, you could imagine, what do you think the funeral director is probably going to end up charging us if they know that there's $30,000 on there, right? Probably old $29,999. They'll have you in a gold casket if they could get it on it, right? So, so Mary, what they recommend to do is to negotiate your best price. So if you know you have 30,000, right? Let's just say that you're able to negotiate the funeral for 20,000. Well, then what will happen is you're going to mark $20,000 right here and hand that over, and everything gets taken care of for the funeral for the 20,000. And then there's still going to be how much left on your certificate now? What do you think, Joe? 10. So what's going to happen, that $10,000, see how I make Joe tell me it's 10, right? Make them tell you. So Joe, how much is going to be on there? If you had 30 and you used 20, what's left? Act like you don't know. 10, that's right. So you know what happened? They're going to pay that $10,000 back to you and the family, tax-free, Mary, to wrap up all those other costs. The concern today is not just the funeral costs, but they're saying that it's funeral and final expenses. And that's why they set this certificate up for you and the family, so that it helps you handle and take care of and never worry about the funeral and the final expenses. So this will give you 20,000 to handle all the funeral and still give you 10,000 to help out with those additional unforeseen final expenses that you can never think about. Does that make sense why they set it up like that for you, Mary? Makes sense why they set it up for you like that, Joe? Now the next thing is, Mary, they would actually set up your freedom of choice certificate as well. Now, Mary, on your freedom of choice certificate, this is going to guarantee to take care of your funeral and final arrangements no matter what. So, I mean, literally, Mary, today, tomorrow, till you're 99 years old, wherever you live, it don't matter if Joe's with the union, he can quit, get fired, retire. Once you have this in place, this will always be in place for you, Mary. Now, I'd imagine if something happened to you, Mary, Joe, I'd imagine you would be the one to take care of the funeral and final arrangements. Is that correct? Okay. Now, Joe, let's just say if it wasn't, for a second, just if you think, if it wasn't you to take care of the final arrangements, who else would it be? Let's just say you passed, God forbid, you passed away first. Who do you think would handle her final arrangements in that situation? The son, your oldest son, Mark? Okay, perfect. So your oldest son, Mark, right? So what's going to happen here, Joe, is you're going to have this freedom of choice certificate in place for Mary. It's going to take care of all of her funeral and final arrangements, right? It's going to be $20,000 on here now until forever. But I'm going to leave you with a folder today, and you're going to have a freedom of choice certificate for you, a freedom of choice certificate in that folder, all right? All of your important information is going to be in that folder as well. But whenever Mark comes home, he's still at college. I guess he's going to come home for Christmas here in a couple of days, right? So this is perfect timing. When he comes home for Christmas, make sure that you show him the folder and just show him the certificate and how to access this, okay? So he knows. Do you guys have like a file drawer in your, like my family has an important, like there was like a file closet, and my family said there's this drawer. Something ever happens to mom and dad, you go into this drawer, and that's where all the important documents are. That's where you want to keep this, right? God forbid something happens, this is going to go in that file drawer, but you want to let Mark know how to access this and everything. So does that make sense, Mary? Okay, perfect, right? Now, the next thing it says on here, Joe and Mary, is it says, let's examine your need for income protection or paycheck protection. Whatever it says, I can't remember what the verbiage is. What's it say on the video? What's it say? Income protection, right? Boom. So you press play. Video plays. After the video plays, comes up on the screen, it says for Joe, the expert simulator is recommending that if you were to pass away today, that it's recommending to have 5 years of your income coming into the household. And the reason that it would recommend 5 years of your income is because right now you have young children in the home. You are the main income earner, and it would take your family at least 5 years to recover and even get close to being back on their feet. So that's why I would recommend, if you were to pass away today, to guarantee that 5 years of your income would continue to come in to the home. Now, for you, Joe, 5 years of your income comes out to be $250,000, right? So it took a look, and right now you currently have nothing in place to protect against that income loss. So what it's showing right now is a need of 250,000 and covering that 5 years. You know, you want to really avoid saying 250,000. Notice how I've said it once, and that was the second time I said it, which I might even not have said it there normally. I avoid saying 250,000 because I'm focusing on what? 5 years. 5 years. So if you think about when I was back over here, I said, Joe, the expert simulator is recommending, it says 250, doesn't it? But I don't say 250. I just know he makes $50,000 a year, and it's recommending 250. So hence it's recommending that how many years? 5 years. So I'm not over here talking about 250. I'm over here talking about 5 years. The expert simulator is recommending that if God forbid you were to pass away today, to have 5 years of your income protected. And what that would do is if you were to pass away, it would make sure that your family over the next 5 years would have your income coming in tax-free. Okay. Now, the reason that it recommends 5 years is because right now you have a young family, young children that you're responsible for, and you're the only main income that the family has. So it would take at least 5 years for the family to get close to being back on their feet. So for you, Joe, it identified that 5 years is about $250,000. So right now it's showing that currently you have $0 in coverage in place for that. And right now it's showing and recommending, or it's showing that you have $0 in coverage for that. And it's showing a need right now of covering all 5 years, right? So for you, it's showing a need, and then it's recommending to cover all 5 years as well. So and I don't even know why to even mention another 250,000. You want to know why you don't have to mention 250,000? Okay, it's because it's on the screen and they can read it, right? So every time you point to 250, you're calling it 5 years. You want to avoid saying 250,000. I don't want them thinking, I don't want to buy a $250,000 life insurance policy. No, you're not. You're getting 5 years of income protection for your family, because if you pass away tomorrow, they're not going to be able to make food for breakfast, right? If they get it all twisted and it's life, no. And you get them back on track to thinking about the concept of really what we're doing here, because you know everybody and their mothers tried to sell them life insurance before, right? Some of these people, think about it, man. Their best friend graduated college and went ahead and got his life insurance license, tried to sell him, right? Then he was in his 20s. The guy from when he got a job, the guy from work, the work insurance guy came around, tried to sell him insurance. Then he bought a house and a guy knocked on his door, tried to sell him insurance, right? Then he was at the racquetball club, you know, and his buddy at the racquetball club tried to sell him insurance. Then his brother's son graduated college and got his life insurance license, tried to sell him insurance. You feel me? Everybody tried to sell him what? How come nobody's talking to these people about income protection? Because that's our job. So we got to get out there and spread the word, because they don't know about it, right? And the more we talk about 250,000, then the less we're talking about the concept, and the more we're putting ourselves back into their cousin Bobby's nephew's son who got married. Their brother was a life insurance agent, and he wanted you to buy a policy off him. Life insurance. We want to get out of the life insurance, get into the concept, right? That makes sense? So that's what I try to do during that. And then I try and put it all in Expert Simulator. I'm not telling him he needs this stuff. You know, the computer's telling him he needs it, right?
Keep them focused on the problem,
Yeah.
not the cost.
Yeah, exactly. You know, exactly. Because, you know, we don't want to be problem causers, but this is where we're going to reveal a problem to them, you know? Because what do they say? You got to sell the problem before you can sell the solution. So they need to be bought in that this is a real problem. You know, they need to be sold that, yeah, this is a serious problem. This is a major concern. And the more that they believe that this is a true problem, the more that they're going to want to buy the solution here in a second, you know? So it's nice because this kind of paints the picture all at the same time. You know, it's like showing the problem and the solution all at the same time. We got it all set up for them, right? You know, and then the last thing will be the mortgage. So on the mortgage, you know, you can play the video. You can play the video. If you don't want to play the video, don't play the video. But, you know, I'm lazy, so I like to play the video and let that do the work. I'll drink a water, you know, give myself a little bit of break, gather my thoughts, let the video do some work for a second, right? We're not killing them. They didn't watch a lot of videos, and these videos are quicker than they ever were before. And for me, it's easy because you should have saw the videos that they had me watching back in 2011. When they first came up with this thing, oh my goodness, it was an old man, and he talked so slow, and the videos were slow and they were long, 3, 4, 5 times as long as they are now. I swear, it was rough. It was rough. But they wanted us to play the videos, you know, and I'm coachable. So I did it. And I literally, I joke with people, but right around 2011, 2012, I crushed Angry Birds because I would flip my computer around and I'd be sitting right behind my laptop acting like I was doing work. The videos were so long, I've heard them so many times that I would literally have my hands behind there acting like I was working. Meanwhile, I was trying to beat like the next level of Angry Birds real quick. So that's how boring they were, right? But now now I would, for me, it's a pleasure. This is a joy. It's like, this is a breath of fresh air to play one of these videos for the people. And remember, you saw it 10 times, 20 times. They never saw it before. This is the first time they're ever going to see it, you know? So you have to be excited with them like it's their first time doing it, you know? Hey, listen, if you're a tour guide at Disneyland, you can't just be like, yeah, there's the Magic Kingdom. Yep, there's the roller coaster. Hey, there's Mickey, you know? You can get cotton candy if you guys want. I've seen the cotton candy 100 times. No, you got to be every single time excited like it's your first time. Does that make sense? It's important. Your excitement is going to right with them. So you got to be in it. Anyways, the mortgage video. So I played a mortgage video. After the mortgage video, you know, I go like this. So Joe and Mary, the expert simulator has identified that right now you owe about $172,000 on your mortgage. Currently, right now, it's showing that there's $0 in coverage for that. And what that means is, God forbid, if something were to happen to Joe, that the mortgage would just get left behind. There's nothing to pay off the mortgage. So like we talked about before, I'd imagine, you know, if something happened to Joe, Mary, you would just pick up on that mortgage. Is that correct? Now, let me go back when I said, like we talked about before. When did we talk about this before? When did we talk about this before? The needs analysis. In the needs analysis, you ask them, Joe and Mary, do you have a mortgage on your home? Yes. Okay, great. What's the balance on your mortgage? $172,000. Okay, great. What's the interest, right? And how many years are left? That's the questions. Now, the last question is, right? Do you have mortgage insurance in case of death? Is that the question? Something like that? What's it say? When you fill out the needs analysis. Don't ask that?
Do you have any life insurance in place to take care of your home if you pass away?
Is that the question?
Or in the case of your death? It's something like that.
Don't tell me they took that question off. It got to still be on the needs analysis, right? Okay, it's still there. You guys don't know what the question is? Somebody on the call, help us out. We're going virtual, man. We're going out of this
Which
world.
question? Which question were you asking about? I
So-
ran to the bathroom.
On the needs analysis, when you ask them the mortgage information, what happened there? Is this still working?
Yeah, it's still working, T.
Okay, cool. What is the question that they ask about the life insurance? Danny Ryan pretty much summed it up. Is that, I don't know if that's verbatim or what.
Do you have
Lots of
mortgage
people-
protection?
Everybody knows this. This is important, guys.
Yes, do you have mortgage protection in case of mortgage insurance, and like in case of, I can't get it verbatim right now, but they do have a question about mortgage
Alright.
insurance.
All right, so this is key. You ready for this, guys? This is the way you can sell mortgage insurance to everybody. Everybody should be buying this stuff. Okay, mortgage insurance is so important for people too. So it says, do you have life insurance, or do you have mortgage insurance in case of death? Whatever that question is, right? The client is going to say to you, yes or no. And most people are going to say what? No, right? So you say no. And what I do is I turn to the computer and I act like I'm typing something in, but all I'm doing is just clicking no, right? And I go and I click no, and I'm like, so I'd assume then if something were to happen to Joe, if Joe were to pass away, I'd assume, Mary, you would be the one who would pick up on the mortgage then? Is that correct? Does that sound fair? Is that right, Joe, Mary? Yeah? Okay. And then I act like I go type that into the computer. Right? Think about that. Do you think Mary even was even thinking about, oh man, if something happens to Joe, I'm going to have to take care of the mortgage all by myself? Like, when do you think she ever thinks about that? Never, right? So by getting that out on the table right there is just like a quick little jab for her to realize, right? That. So once again, so Joe and Mary, the next question it says on here is, do you have mortgage insurance in case of death? So if you passed away, Joe, do you have life insurance that pays off your mortgage? No? Okay. And so I would assume I guess if something did happen to you, Joe, I'd assume who would take care of Mary? I assume you would take care of the mortgage then in that situation? Is that correct? Yes? Okay. All right. Okay. And then I just keep on moving through the needs analysis. But that makes them realize it right there, right? So now we go back over at the end of the presentation. I play the mortgage video for them, and then I tell them the expert simulator has identified the mortgage balance for you that you owe about $172,000 on your mortgage, right? And currently, right now, it's showing that there's $0 in coverage right now to take care of that mortgage. God forbid if something were to happen to Joe. So what that means is, if Joe were to pass away today, that the $172,000, there's nothing in place to pay all that off. So that still would be remaining to get left behind for the family. And like we talked about before, I'd assume, obviously Mary, that's what the burden, that would be the concern that would get left behind to you, right? So what they did is the expert simulator, it's recommending right now to cover that $172,000 and make sure that that's never going to be a burden to your family. Essentially, what it's recommending to do is if Joe were to pass away, it's recommending to make sure that the mortgage gets paid off free and clear. Okay. And, I'm sorry, I messed up. I said, it shows right now, since you have $0 in coverage in place, it's showing what? It's showing that you need $172,000, and therefore it's actually recommending to cover all $172,000 and make sure that, God forbid, if something did happen to you, Joe, the mortgage would be guaranteed to be paid off. Okay. So Joe, does that make sense why they set this up for you? Mary, does it make sense why they set this up for you as well? Okay, great. So Joe and Mary, just to recap everything, just to make sure we're on the same page. Okay. The first thing it did is it identified for us to make sure that our funeral and final expenses were never a burden to our family. And for that, it recommended to have $30,000 in coverage in place for each one of you guys for your funeral and final arrangements. And what it recommended to do is to set you guys each up with freedom of choice certificates to guarantee that. And for Joe, you'd have $30,000 on yours. Mary, you'd have $20,000 on yours. And the second thing it recommended and it took a look at was your need for income protection. And right now, if something were to happen to Joe, there would be no income coming into the household. So what it went ahead and did is it set you guys up with income protection. So now, God forbid, something happens, you're going to have Joe's income coming in tax-free for the following 5 years. And then the last thing it took a look at for you guys was for your mortgage and, for your beautiful home here. Here's some closing stuff I could give you on the mortgage, So here's some closing stuff on the mortgage. So it took us it took a look at your mortgage, Joe, right? And it showed you owe about 172,000, and it shows that there's nothing in place. So what it did is set you up with mortgage protection to make sure that your mortgage will never be a burden to your family, ever again. And what I ask all my clients is, I ask them is what do you think your biggest asset is? So you can go into this asset conversation real quick with them, okay? So you say, if I ask all my clients, and when you say you ask all your clients, that just puts you in a different realm as well. Think about it. You ask all your clients. What do you mean? You must have a lot of clients, right? So I ask all my clients, Joe, Mary, I always ask my clients, what is your biggest asset? And what do you think most people say? If I had to ask 100 people, what's their biggest asset? And everybody always says it's their home, right? And then I ask most people, if you had to take everybody who owns a home and ask them if they have a mortgage on it, what percentage of homeowners have a mortgage? Well, not 100. Some people have their house paid off, right? But what percentage right now? They're saying, at least 90% of homeowners have a mortgage, especially if you're in your 30s and in your early 40s. Most of those individuals have a mortgage, right? The concern now is if you have a mortgage, you don't own your home, do you? Who owns your home? The bank, right? So a lot of people, I ask them though, say, what's your biggest asset? And they always tell me it's their home. But if you have a mortgage on your home, then your home's not really an asset, is it? It's actually what? A liability. So is our house our biggest asset, or is it our biggest liability? For most families that we meet with, unfortunately, their house is not even an asset to them at all. It's actually the biggest liability that they carry. God forbid if something were to happen to Joe, leave him behind $100,000 or $200,000 debt is a pretty major liability. So what this allows the family to do is to guarantee that no matter what, that this will never be a liability to the family, and potentially it'll be an asset. Now I ask all my clients this. I say, when you pass away, Joe and Mary, would you rather leave behind a legacy or a liability? And what do you think most people tell me? Everybody always says legacy, right? However, unfortunately, most people that I meet with right now, if they were to pass away today, they wouldn't be leaving behind a legacy for their family at all. Most people, if they were to pass away today, they would be leaving behind major liabilities. And if you ask most people what they want to do, most people, if I said, do you want to leave behind a legacy or a liability? Everybody wants to leave behind a legacy. Nobody really wants to leave behind a liability. So what they found is that by setting the families up with these benefit programs and the mortgage protection, it is actually it's a way for our clients to actually leave behind a true legacy and never have to worry about them being stuck, leaving behind major liabilities. That was the big problem, Joe and Mary, is most families out there today are stuck in situations where they're leaving behind liabilities for the people that they love the most. And that's why they set these benefit programs up for all the members. They call this the family plan for the family man. And this allows them to make sure that a legacy will be guaranteed to be left for their family forever, and they'll never have to worry about that. And if I had to ask you, Joe and Mary, if you had to say, what's the most important thing in the world to you? What do you think most people would say? What would you say? Family, right? So now let's say you had to put a price tag on your family real quick. Like just real quick, you had to put a price on them. What would you say your family's worth to you? A lot of people say priceless. They say pretty much priceless. Well, you're right. You can't really put a price tag on family. However, and fortunately for us, they were able to put a price on protecting our family, which is just $117 a month, which is like $26 a week. So less than a cup of coffee, less than a cell phone bill, less than a cable bill, they were put a price on protecting our family. But if I had to ask you, Joe and Mary, when do you think the most important time to protect your family is? Now? Yeah, probably yesterday, right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to make sure we get your foot in the door with the benefits, but we'll make sure we keep them comfortable at the same time, all right? Now, everybody always wants to try and qualify for these benefits, Joe and Mary, but unfortunately, not everybody can. So I need to make sure that you can qualify first. So were you ever an Alcoholic Anonymous or AA? You ever use Narcotics Out of hallucinogens? You ever have any DUIs, DWIs? They spend any time in a slammer over the last few years, right? And you start qualifying them. And that's called the takeaway. I say, before you can even have these, I got to make sure you can even qualify first. I sold the shit out of them. They're all bought into it. I don't know.
So from there, like, once you find out that they do qualify, you let them know, and then do you go straight to the beneficiaries or the doctor?
Doctor first, then beneficiaries.
I have a question I ran into some people that they own the property, like a 2-flat, and they say if I die, my wife's gonna have the income from the rent of upstairs to pay off the mortgage every month. So like the house is gonna pay itself without having to have her work.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a different type of situation. And what you can do, in those situations too would be, he said that they owned a duplex. So like the way they live in the other, they rent out the other will help pay off the mortgage and all that, and that's good. That's good. That's a good situation. Congratulate the guy. You know what I'm saying? And I still would try and sell them on the mortgage protection. I still would I wouldn't shy away from it. I say you should still get this, definitely. Especially if you got the mortgage, if you got the rent, it'll pay for itself and you double down on your money. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I show him how to double down on his money. So, okay, so right now, but yeah, and there's no guarantee that the people are going to rent there. There's vacancies, you never know. Now, so what you can do is you say, what's the property worth? 200 grand. Okay. Right. So you get the mortgage protection. If you pass away, you're going to leave behind a $200,000 property that still needs paid off. If you have this, you're going to have the 200. It's basically you're going to double your money and clear out. But anyways, I would try and sell them on that. Okay. But here's what else you could do. I met with a couple one time. They had their house paid off. Right. And I'm like, this is great. Now, if something happens to you, Joe, Mary, you have the house free and clear, right? And they had a lot of acreage. They had like 100 acres or something out in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. So the taxes on the house was, I can't remember what it was. It wasn't too crazy, but I believe it was something like 30 grand a year. It was something crazy like that. It was like 30 grand a year for these taxes, or 20 grand a year for taxes, like 1,800 a month, 2 grand a month for taxes, right? And so I said, if something happens to you, Joe, Mary's still going to have to pay $2,000 a month in real estate taxes. And Mary, if something happens to you, your kids are going to have to pay at least $2,000 a month in real estate taxes, right? So I said, what we can do is we can set you up with 10 years of real estate tax protection. So if you pass away, your family is going to have 10 years to keep the house and not have to worry about paying real estate taxes, and gives them 10 years to get on their feet and figure things out. And she ended up buying a $200,000 policy off me, with the added benefits of it being tax free for down the line. Tax free. So just remember, like, if somebody wants to go toe to toe with you with investments too, like, dude, that was just me thinking on my toes in the home. Nobody taught me that shit. I created that. Real estate tax protection was created on the spot by necessity. And now we have it available. Isn't that cool?
Somebody bought a duplex. They're pretty business minded. What if you just said, okay, that's great. You did a great job. But if you imagine if anything happened to you and then you came into 200,000, I'm sure there's a lot of properties you've had your mind on. You should probably use that money, buy another property
Yeah,
and, do whatever you need to do with that. Protect yourself here again.
right. That's a good point. That's the stuff, to think about,
That
if
use their own,
if they're
business sense against them.
yeah. And that's what they need to hear, suggestions and stuff from people. But Faye, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I do. A couple weeks ago, I sat down with someone and they were like POS. They both had like 100,000 covered already.
POS with 100,000?
Yeah, and so I'm like going through it. I'm like, going through the options, and then like I think the first option I showed them both was like for 100,000 more. So I was like, Carol, end all, whatever this and that. They still had a mortgage, debt, whatever. And then like right when I barely even like got to the end of like finishing option A for both of them, and the wife was like, well, wait, but like, I get what you're saying here, but like right now the funeral and final like if I were to die today, my funeral and final expense would only be like however much, $12,000, and then there's a mortgage. And she said, but if I die in 30 years, I understand that the funeral might be more, but my mortgage will be paid off by then. So she was like, it kind of like evens out, and I was like, yeah, good point. Like I did not know what to say at all.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
Never
So
thought that before.
that's a good point. So the client said, I got 100,000 now, and it's going to pay off my mortgage and my funeral if I pass away today. And then as I get older, my mortgage is going to go down, but the funeral is going to go up. So the 100,000 is still going to take care of everything. I don't need no more. Is that what they're saying?
Like basically, yeah. That's what she's saying.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple areas you can go with. We can do a lot of things. When somebody has $100,000 of coverage, number one, you tell them that's great. Most of our clients have that already set up. Most of my clients already have that. That's great. 100,000, perfect. Most of our clients typically have 100 or 200,000. And in fact, usually what they'll do is they'll have 100,000 will be in place to just, you have $100,000 to ensure a death benefit to go to your family, right? And then you could take another $100,000 and you could take the paid up option on that. Or you take the other $100,000 and use that for cash value, right? Remember, there's three things that can happen at the end of this policy. Number one, what's the first thing that happen? Nothing. So you just keep paying for it. And then when you die, your family gets the money. Number two, you can take your cash value out. Number three, you can take the paid up option, right? So sometimes what they'll do is they'll have $100,000. $100,000 will be just for the life insurance, guaranteed to go to the kids, right? And then they'll have another $100,000 policy, and they'll have that set to take the paid up option on that, and they'll stop paying on that policy, So the what I was going to talk about though on an investment side is if somebody has $100,000, you show them, you say, you're smart, right? So when you, I think of the best way to go. So you guys might have saw, I have a video called the tax control triangle. I don't know if you saw it before, right? But the idea of this is that, people want to diversify their investments from an investment standpoint, but we also need to diversify our stuff from a tax standpoint, right? And everybody's retirement assets for long-term investing, all their retirement assets are typically in taxable areas, which are 401ks and IRAs. If you put your money in a 401k, you don't pay taxes today, but when you go to retire, guess what? You're going to get taxed on that as income, right? If you take your money, you put it into the stock market, or you buy a mutual fund or something, and that mutual fund grows, that stock grows, and you cash that out, you're going to pay taxes on what? On the gains, on the growth, on interest. right? So that's partially taxed. But there's also a way you can put money into an investment, pay taxes today and never pay taxes again. That's tax-free money in retirement, right? And if all of your money is in a taxable area, then you're going to be subject to paying whatever tax rates that they're going to hit you with, right? So it's like this, okay? There's a triangle. You got all your money over here in your IRA and your 401k in a taxable area. This is taxable money. Then over here, you have some money over here in a stock account, your savings money, right? This is just some cash you got. You're getting interest on it. You're getting some gains. So you're only paying partial taxes over here. This is full tax. We'll call this full tax, part tax. The fully taxable money is what? IRAs, 401ks. You put the money in today, don't pay no taxes, but when you take it out, fully taxed as income. Right here, partially taxed on gains and interest. Where else can you put your money from a tax standpoint? Tax what? Tax-free. You can put your money into an investment, and when you go take your money out in retirement, completely tax-free. But what if taxes are really high? Don't matter, tax-free. What if taxes are really low? Don't matter, tax-free. Completely tax-free money, right? Well, we know this are 401ks and IRAs, right? We know this is stock accounts, savings accounts at the bank, CDs, mutual funds, normal accounts. These are over here. Roth IRA is one of the only investments that you could put your money in, pay taxes today and never pay taxes ever again. There's only other two ways you can do it. The second way is if you can find yourself a municipal bond, municipal bonds. Municipal bonds, if you just want to sound smart when you talk to people, you tell them they're triple tax exempt. You don't pay taxes on your municipal bonds, all the growth, triple tax exempt. What's that mean? Well, you're buying a bond, not a government, not a federal. It's not the federal. It's not the state. It's the what? It's the municipal, right? So that's local. You know, when you pay taxes, you pay local taxes and you pay what? State and federal, right? So when you buy municipal, you don't pay any local taxes. But because it's inside a state, you don't pay any state taxes in the states inside the federal, so you don't pay any federal taxes either. So they're triple tax exempt over there, right? But they're bonds. They're bonds. So you're going to get bond rates typically, you know. The only other way you can get tax-free money in retirement or tax-free money down the line is what? It's called cash value life insurance. The problem with an IRA is if I put $100 into my IRA and I pass away, guess how much tax-free money my family gets? They get $100, right? If I put $100 into my cash value life insurance and I pass away, guess how much tax-free money my family gets? Yeah, like 100,000, right? Whatever the death benefit is, 100,000. Now down the line, from here, I'm going to be able to take money out, right? From here, I'm going to be able to take money out. Tax-free from here, tax-free from here. So when you're in retirement, Joe, let's just use an example in retirement to keep it simple. If somebody needs to live off of $100,000, and how much money do they need to pull out of their portfolio in order to get 100? Well, if all your money is in a taxable area here, you're probably going to have to pull out 130,000 in order to get your 100,000, right? Because you're going to have to pay what? $30,000 for what? Taxes, right? Does that make sense? Because all your money's in a taxable area. So if we can diversify our portfolio from a tax standpoint a little bit more, right? And let's say that we don't have all of our money over here. Now think in mind this. Think about this. Where's everybody's money in the economy? Where have they been telling people to put their money for retirement for years? The 401ks. Put your money in your 401k. All the baby boomers are the big 401k generation, right? All the baby boomers are putting all their money in here, right? Now, what happens when you put your money in a 401k or an IRA is you're not allowed to take it out until what? 59 and a half. You can't touch it till you're 59 and a half, and you get a 10% penalty and taxes. But if you take it out after 59 and a half, no penalty, but still taxes. What happens at 72 is what? You're forced to start taking it out. So you're not allowed to touch it till 59 and a half, but you have to take it by 72. You're not allowed to keep it in there anymore. Mandatory distribution. It's called mandatory distribution. They make you take your money out at 72. So now the government is thinking, I don't know what they're thinking, okay, first of all. But think about this though. We have all the baby boomers who got all their money over here, and now they're all being forced to take it out over the next 10, 20 years. They're all going to be mandatory distribution of this money, right? So what do you think if the government knows that all this money over here is going to start to be coming pulled out, right? What would you do with the taxes? Raise them or lower them? Hey, I'm not a betting man, but if you were a betting person and you had to bet if taxes are going to go up or down in the future, what do you think you would bet? Most people I talk to say we're going to bet they're going to go up. So if we have all of our money here and the government raises the taxes, guess what? We're stuck. We just have to pay it, right? Well, if we can diversify from a tax standpoint and not have it all here, but have some here and have some here, it gives us more control, okay? So let's just say that instead of having to pull 130,000, because listen, when I pull 130,000 out, I'm pulling it all from this area, right? So this is called your what? Income, right? Check this out. What if I can pull 110 to net my 100 and still pay 10 in what? Taxes. 10 in taxes. How did I do that? Here's how. What if, to get my 110, I broke it down and I pulled more from here than here, right? Let's say that we end up pulling from this side right here, we'll pull 80. Maybe this will work, maybe not. 70, we could say 80. And then I pull 30 from up here. You know what? That's what it was. So I pull 70 from here, 30 from up here, and 10 from over here. What I pull? 110, right? I don't pay any taxes on this 30. And when I look at my income, am I going to get taxed as at the $130,000 tax bracket? Am I going to get taxed at the $110,000 tax bracket? I'm going to get taxed at the what? $70,000 tax bracket. Because that's income. This ain't considered income. This is investment gains. So you're going to tax on your income bracket. So I'm going to be in the $70,000 tax bracket now. Right? So I'm going to pay a lower percentage offer a lower amount. Here, you're paying, 30% on 130,000 or whatever it is. Over here, my taxes for the year might be, 20% on 70,000. That makes sense?
So for the income that you're talking about, for like 70,000, is that based off of like the amount that you pull out when you're like traditional IRAs and stuff from retirement?
Yep.
So that classifies you for like what your income amount is.
Correct.
Okay.
Because when you put the money in here, you never got taxed on income. That's why people put the money in the 401k. I make 100,000 this year, but if I put 40 into my 401k, I'm only going to get taxed as if I made 60,000 for the year. So I never pay taxes on that 40. So when I pull it out, now I'm taxed. It goes towards my income, right?
Can't you only put like 6,500 per year or something?
Some different investments have different rules. A 401k, no. 401k, you can put a lot more than 6,500 a year. 401ks are set up through companies and they'll match and all kind of different stuff can go on with that. I don't know the limits on how much you can, but there are limits on it, as well. But they're high, like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year you can put in a 401k, I believe. But I believe it's $6,000 a year is the maximum amount that you can put into an IRA, a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. The max you can put is $6,000 a year, which is like $500 a month. That's the max you can put. And if you're older, like if you're past 50, they'll call it a catch-up provision, and you're allowed to put like 8,000 in a year.
You can't use a Roth IRA if you make more than 150K, right?
Yeah, more than 150K household income, you cannot use a Roth IRA. So once you start making too much money, you can't use it. So when you're young, you guys right now, your first few years, you're like, oh, you got to use the Roth, get money into your Roth, and get money, stack it into your cash value life insurance as much as you possibly can.
You can still keep it, right? Even though you have to make up.
Oh yeah, I still got my Roth. I stacked my Roth for years in my 20s, and then once I made too much money, I couldn't use my Roth IRA, and it's sitting there, and it's growing. I could go in there right now in my Roth IRA and sell this mutual fund and buy this stock, and I could do whatever I want inside my mutual fund. I could just put it all in cash right now. I could buy municipal bond funds for no reason. It would make no sense to buy municipal bond funds inside a Roth IRA. You know why? Because you're already getting the tax benefits. There's really no reason for that. So, but anyways, that's the point. I could buy ETFs or whatever.
So you, with your 401k, it might be a good idea to buy municipal funds.
Well, the 401k, you don't got options. Your options are limited. The 401k is set up through a company, and the company will work through, a dealer, let's say a Fidelity or whatever. So if I work for, Johnson & Johnson and I sign up for their 401k only has like 17 different options. They're all mutual funds. So I can choose now, you know what? I want all my 401k money invested into the, what do they call that? Large cap, mutual fund, or I want it diversified. I want half of it in the large cap, half of it in small cap, or I want 10% in international, or I want it all in bonds. Like you can control where you put your money in your 401k, but a lot of times they have pre-built diversification classes, and then what they do, it automatically rebalances your portfolio for you as well, so the difference is a 401k set up through a company, you only have a couple different mutual fund options. That's it. You can put it in cash, you can do what you want. When you open up your own IRA, you can put your money in anything. You could buy stock inside your IRA. You could buy mutual funds from any company out there inside your IRA. I would steer clear of mutual funds, guys. They're highly expenses. They're fees, expenses. There's a lot of fees and expenses. If you get the book Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins, Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. It's a long book. I listened to it multiple times, And every time I get mad at mutual funds, he tears them apart. He shows how they're just not good. And I believe it. And this is coming from a guy who sold them. Okay. You got to remember what I did. I spent 3 years as a financial advisor working 80 hours a week. I sold every investment you could think about: annuities, mutual funds, IRAs, stocks, universal policies, variable policies, term policies, whole life policies. I sold it all. I sold homes. I was a real estate agent. I sold real estate before, I've done it all. And it's all dude, a lot of it is, it's fine. It's not always most financially beneficial for the client. I was like almost mad at myself, like for what I did to clients, not on purpose, because I was taught to sell mutual funds. I called my dad. I was like, Dad, you believe I was selling people mutual funds for 3 years? This is a crock of shit. I can't believe this. I was like mad about it. You know what I mean? So, what I know what we do here is, our clients need what we have, and nobody else is sitting down with them and going over this with them. So like, if we don't make it happen, good luck to them, the clients out there, man. I really feel that way. Like, I feel like if it's meant to be, it's up to me. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. So, I always put my cap on when I go out there and know I needed to get them protected, because nobody else can be able to do this. But anyways, what the heck what were we talking about? Faith had that question. Did I answer your question, Faith? Maybe a little
I
bit.
think the point, right, is like, so if they're getting smart like that, you use that to
Show them you're smarter.
show them that you're smart.
Yeah. Yeah, and here's the point though, check it out. Not only is it your long-term investment that helps cover you from tax ramifications down the line, it puts you in control and all the stuff long, but you know what it also does? It covers the short-term need. If you pass away, your family's going to get $100,000. That's why it's better than a Roth IRA in that regard. The Roth IRA, probably if you invest into that heavily, it might be worth more. But I don't know, man. If they're putting $6,000 a year into Roth IRA and $6,000 a year into your whole life policy, I don't know where more value could be. Because remember, they're not going to take you take the cash value out, there's still a death benefit left behind. And it's tax-free as well. So a lot to think about, right? So anyways, that's what I would do when somebody had a $100,000 policy. I would show them how they could get another $100,000 or $200,000 policy, and it makes complete sense, for them. So, all right. Well, I hope this helped today. I don't want to keep you guys in here any longer, but I hope this helped. We got a big week this week. If you need anything, let me know. And let's rock it. All right, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Tommy.
Is that long? Too long today? Oh man, that was long. Can't believe we went that long.
That was good.
Oh boy.